This is the Wired Educator Podcast, episode 199, The Expert Effect, an interview with Zach Rondo and Grayson McKinney. In this episode of the Wired Educator Podcast, I interview Zach Rondo and Grayson McKinney about their brand new book, The Expert Effect, a three-part system to break down the walls of your classroom and connect your students to the world. I love this book. The Expert Effect includes practical teaching strategies and QR code links to resources and templates that make it easy to integrate this system into your classroom. Regardless of the grade level you teach, you'll find inspiration and ideas that will help you engage your students in unforgettable ways. Listen to this episode to learn how you can win a copy of The Expert Effect and some Wired Educator stickers. I love this book. I love these guests. This is a phenomenal interview. You're going to love it. Here we go.
Welcome to the Wired Educator Podcast, where it's all about becoming a better educator now so you can make a greater impact and enjoy a higher quality lifestyle. And now, your host, Kelly Croy.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Wired Educator Podcast, episode 199. I'm your host, Kelly Croy, and we are just one episode away from the 200th episode of the Wired Educator Podcast. Episode 200 will be coming at you very soon, and I have a surprise guest that you're going to absolutely love. I can't wait to share this special interview with you. You're going to love it, absolutely love it. It's going to be a huge surprise and a very special 200th episode. I can't wait to share it with you. You're not going to believe it. It is the end of the school year. The end of the school year is here. Listen, I don't know if your school is already ended or is ending while you're listening to this podcast, or it's about to end very shortly, or maybe even down the road. But the end of the school year is near. Yes, I think so. I've never been one to celebrate the end of the year quite like this, but this has been one extraordinary year. And I just want to take a minute to say thank you to all of the loyal listeners to the Wired Educator Podcast for an amazing school year. You did it. You absolutely did it. I am so proud of you. You taught in multiple learning environments under the most extreme circumstances and challenges, but you did it. You did it with grace, you did it with honor, and you did it making a difference in the lives of students. It's incredible. So congratulations to you. Thank you for all that you do. It was not easy, but I cannot let you leave the school year feeling underappreciated or undervalued. There just isn't a really good way to show appreciation and value under the circumstances where we were this past year. If you are feeling even a bit undervalued or underappreciated, I want you to listen. I want you to lean in. I want you to hear this, and I want you to feel it. You made a difference. You are really awesome. I need you to know that. Thank you for everything that you did. Our planet, truly, our planet is better for it, and I mean that. You made a global impact. A better future is ahead for all of us, and I just want you to take a second, take a breath. Enjoy your break, but not just yet, because we have an exciting interview for you coming right now. Buckle up. I am so excited to share that I am back. Yes, I'm back. It has been over a year and a half since I have given a live presentation to a teaching audience. Sure, I did a ton of speaking via Zoom and video all around the world, including Russia, Iceland, Mexico, and other worldwide locations, and plenty in the United States as well. But I am excited to share that I just got a booking to speak to my favorite audience in the world, teachers. I'm going to be the opening day speaker for a school district this coming August, and I am excited. I miss the stage. I miss presenting face-to-face. I miss meeting teachers. I miss sending teachers off for a brand new year. I cannot tell you how excited and explain to you how excited I am to be invited to share my art and my words with an amazing group of educators. We are doing it up right. Every teacher is going to go home with an art print signed by me, and the school is doing a book study with both of my books. That's right, both books. They're ordering Unthink Before Bed for their younger students, and they are ordering Along Came a Leader for all of their staff and all of their older students, and I couldn't be more thrilled. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I hope to meet you one day at an event just like this. Hey, Ashtabula, Ohio, I will see you in August. I'm excited. Today, I'm excited to share my interview with Zach Rondo and Grayson McKinney with you about their brand new book, The Expert Effect. It really is an amazing book. I am very excited about it because these three incredible ideas that these authors share in this book could very well transform not only your classroom, not only your school year, but the lives of students for the rest of your teaching career. This is a great book, and I'm so proud to share everything that Zach and Grayson have in this interview because they're two amazing guys. And they're so much fun, and they're so full of great ideas about how to make an impact in the lives of students. I'm even doing a giveaway of their book, but you'll have to listen to the interview to find out how you can win a copy of The Expert Effect. Let's jump right into this interview. Zach Rondo is a passionate fourth grade teacher in Troy, Michigan. His mission is to teach students the 21st century skills, mindsets, and attributes that will help them succeed long after they leave his classroom. In 2019, Zach was named the Troy School District Elementary Teacher of the Year and the Oakland County Elementary Teacher of the Year. Zach is an instructor in the Master's Program of Learning, Design, and Technology at Central Michigan University. He utilizes technology to create learning opportunities that otherwise would not be possible. Grayson McKinney is a fifth grade teacher from Michigan and a leader in the area of innovative teaching and learning. He has worked with learners at all levels of school from kindergarten through sixth grade as a teacher, technology facilitator, and as a program administrator. He is a student podcaster, educational writer, and speaker on the topic of 21st century student learning and engagement. Together, Zach and Grayson are the authors of this newly released book, The Expert Effect, a three-part system to break down the walls of your classroom and connect your students to the world, which was recently released by EduMatch Publishing. It is my honor, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Zach and Grayson, The Expert Effect.
Thank you for having us. We're happy to be here. It's an honor.
Thank you so much, Kelly.
I am so excited to interview you two. You have an awesome new book just out, The Expert Effect. And I can't wait to learn how that is going to help educators all around the world to level up and make a difference in the lives of students. I want to applaud both of you. Was this a pandemic project? Is this something that just kind of spurred the moment, or is this something that the two of you had planned out?
The pandemic gave us some time to craft the ideas, but it's something we've been working on since April 2019. We actually turned in the first draft before the pandemic, and then it gave us an opportunity to revise and kind of give us a whole new way of teaching to practice this system with. So we added a lot after our first draft based on the pandemic.
Awesome. Grayson?
Yeah, we've been teaching at the same elementary school in Troy, Michigan for the last, how many years has it been now? 6 years? 8 years. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we kind of lost some years there. And since Zach's first year, we've been working together and presenting together at regional conferences. So we've always known that we've had a lot in common, but over the years, we kind of honed that message. And what this book is the result of all of that teamwork, all of that collaboration, and the experiences that we've taken all of our classes through over the last 8 years.
Well, fantastic. I can't wait to learn more and share that out. I've been watching the launch on social media, and it's exciting. It is so exciting to see somebody give birth to a project like this, because you are teaching. This is just another way to expand the walls of your classroom and build the attendance in your classroom. Now you're teaching adults and veterans and new teachers and future educators. This is something that's going to be around a long time. So congratulations to both of you. I'd love to go back in time, and I'm going to start with you, Zach. I want to hear about you. Now, you and I have a little bit of history together, and we'll get into that to a minute. But I want to hear about how you were as a student, Zach, and you too, Grayson, and what was your defining moment when you knew that you wanted to become an educator, and how did you arrive where you're at today, writing a book, The Expert Effect, to help educators around the world? Zach?
Yeah, I don't have the most traditional story of going into education. I didn't play school as a kid. I didn't think that I wanted to be a teacher. I really didn't have any idea what I wanted to do when I was younger. The only thing I could think of was playing in the NHL, which did not work out, for the record. But I come from a family of teachers. My grandma and grandpa met in 1957 because my grandpa was a fifth grade teacher and my grandma was the kindergarten teacher down the hall. And my mom started a daycare center, which my mom still owns today, called Mon Ami.
Awesome.
It's going about 38 years strong. And I have aunts who are teachers as well. So I've been surrounded with teaching. So when I did apply to college, I right away started taking teaching classes. But for me, it was working in day camps that really solidified it for me that I wanted to be working with kids. I was a director of a 3rd and 4th grade day camp, and I knew that was the age I wanted to do. So I did go into it right away in college and stuck with it, and then got hired as a 4th grade teacher, and I've taught 3rd and 4th grades.
That's awesome. You know, I was a middle school teacher, and people would often stop me in my tracks and say, really? Middle school? Like, is this some sort of punishment for you? And I'm like, no, I loved it. But I got to tell you, that intermediate age, that kind of, I scratch my head. You just feel that was the age you wanted to work with. Why was that, Zach? What was it about that age group?
I think they're equal part kid, where they're still innocent. They still like coming to school. They still have that excitement, but they're also old enough to and mature enough to, you can have a sense of humor with them. They can understand things when you teach them. They get it. So and you can do like a lot of cool projects with that age group. To me, it's like the perfect mix of young and mature enough to get things and be able to work with.
Fantastic. Grayson, what were you like as a student, and when did you know that you wanted to educate and make an impact?
So I'm from an educator family as well. My mom was a school social worker, and so growing up, I was going into the schools with her. She traveled around between multiple buildings, and I still remember like going to the playgrounds, going to the after school fairs, and go like the carnival games. They set up the duck pool where you pull the number and all that kind of stuff. All of those like peripheral events around school are the things that I liked the best. It's kind of like the question, if we ask kids today, like, what's your favorite class in school? It's either recess. Okay. All right. Besides that, lunch, gym. It's all of the stuff where you're focusing on connections. You're focusing on, playing to kids' strengths. And I think that's the thing that I fell in love with about school, all of the outside stuff. When I was in 8th grade, and we talk about this in the book a little bit, we took an East Coast field trip. So we boarded these huge coach buses, and we, drove to Niagara Falls and through New York City. And, it was the first experience like, going to Battery Park and haggling with, street vendors over fake Oakleys. And, first night away from home and staying in a hotel without parents, like that was a defining moment. It gave me the fever for like traveling. I love taking my 5th graders to 5th grade camp, where again, they get to find strengths that they didn't even know they had. It's all those kinds of experiences for me that make school a magical place. And I guess, just talking about this, it's kind of given me the opportunity to think for the first time, like, those are the types of experiences that we're trying to bring to kids in our classrooms. We're trying to make school engaging again. We're trying to cure the ill of the disconnect, because when if you're ever too focused on grades or too focused on the punitive, oh, you missed that question, the gotcha style of teaching, kids will fade out. And we want to make it as exciting and as real and authentic for them as possible. And so I guess our book highlights what you can do on a daily basis, in between the big field trips and stuff, in order to make school real and exciting for kids.
That's awesome. Well, I'll tell you, I would want to be in your classrooms, and I would love, I'm the father of 4 girls, and I would love for you to be one of my daughter's teachers. I think it's cool. I'm trying to picture, like, did you like fist bump each other in the hallway and like, hey, let's write a book? Or how did that go down? Because I have written a couple books, and I always try to start projects. Zach, I'm sure I've shared this with you at some point. I always feel alone. I always feel like I'm the only person around that has this idea. No one's interested in podcasting or writing or speaking or things like that. I think it's so cool that you guys found a common interest. And so I want to hear the backstory. How did this go down? What happened?
Yes, I love this backstory. So when I graduated college and was going through teacher interviews and was on like interview number 20, which I hoped would be the last one, it was the 3rd day of the school year. And I had to go into a classroom and teach a sample lesson. So I walked into Grayson's classroom to teach a lesson on nonfiction text structures. And I guess you could say it went well, because the next day we found ourselves as teaching partners. It was a Friday. So on Monday, we became teaching partners, and we were right there. It was the second week of school starting already. It started a little late. But pretty quickly, we realized how similar we were. And then towards the end of the year, our district opened a new position called technology chair, and our principal approached us to split the position. So then before the next school year, we gave a presentation together. And going from there, it just kind of clicked, and we have done, I don't know, probably 30 to 40 presentations. And as we were presenting, we started with an idea, and, we'll both say our early presentations were like technology training. And then we kind of started building on best practice technology and how do you really use technology to transform education. And through those presentations and through talking out our ideas, the system kind of just came about. And really, Grayson's the one who named the system and put it in better words than I could. And then it was like, all right, let's start this and let's try it. And then we got lucky to connect with EduMatch Publishing, which have been an amazing publisher for us. So it kind of started 8 years ago, but we say, it's been 2 years in the writing process, but really it's been a work of 8 years and kind of developing together and learning and growing together.
Yeah, I always say to people, things take longer than we think they do. And so the best time to start was yesterday, right? So I'm glad you guys did. Grayson, I'm sure you have something to add to this story. I think it's cool that you came up with the title because it's awesome. It is a very enchanting. I can't wait to get my copy.
That's right. Well, yeah, so Zach and I have always had like a really good working relationship. The part of the story that he left out was I think it was the following year, right after the first year. There were only going to be 2 sections of 4th grade just because of how numbers worked out, and so it was just going to be he and I teaching 4th grade. We were the only 2 male teachers in our building, and our principal had actually just visited a school in I want to say St. Louis, Missouri. And she came back and she was like, oh my gosh, it's this lab school. They co-teach there. They've got 2 teachers in a classroom and they do all this project-based learning. It's an amazing place. And, as I wish that she could have sent us there to like observe and like hang out and spend a week there. But we kind of just made up our own version. We're like, yeah, we can do that. And so we were like, well, what if we've got these walls between our classrooms that are, it was built in like the 70s and they've got these flexible learning spaces.
Sure.
And the only other time that the walls open up is when we're having our fair and like our room became like the prize room. But I was like, well, what if we kept the wall open and, combined our 2 classes and we tried something new, and we called it the 4th grade learning lab. And it was going to be an experiment in co-teaching, and really that gave us, having another person there to tag team with and to take risks with. It was really a formative year. It gave us the opportunity to, try crazy things because we knew we had backup. So we've always worked really well together. And I like to say Zach's like the big picture guy. He's got the big ideas, and then I can go through with like the fine tooth comb and kind of make it look good and make sense on paper, and we just complement each other really well.
You really do, and that's a wonderful story, and I'm so happy that you 2 get to work together. And so with that, we have the Expert Effect, a 3-part system to break down the walls of your classroom and connect your students to the world. And it's been recently released on EduMatch Publishing. Congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
Now, Zach, you and I, we have a bit of a backstory. I won't go into all the details, but you and I have worked together, and I am so proud of you, Zach. Even right now, listening to your voice, there's so much confidence, and you've grown so much, and I'm just incredibly proud of that. So I think that's fantastic. And Grayson, things are still good between the 2 of you. You see another project down the road, maybe?
Yes, we have got stuff in the works. Yeah, when we started a blog that first year, and the tagline for our blog was, when it comes to innovation, there is no finish line. So we kind of ripped off Nike, but it applies well. now.
Well, I'm sure their lawyers are working on something right now, so brace yourselves. Fantastic. Well, let's talk about the book. I love the cover of the book. It is very sharp, and if I may, I mean this in the most positive way. It looks like awesome art from the grade that you would teach. Like that, it looks to me like that is how a student would color the earth. Like there are parts of that are left a little bit uncolored, but it's incredibly attractive. It's a really good book, and I love the title, The Expert Effect. A little alliteration going on there, or assonance, whichever what literary device we're going to focus on. Let's start with the cover. How did it come to be, and why is the title so good, Grayson?
So that's the graphic design. That was something we discovered that we could have a lot of say over. So that was the fun part. Even before the book was done, I was playing around and playing with different designs. And I think Zach might have gotten annoyed with the amount of. I was like, "Hey, look at this. What do you think?" But I guess that's the design thinking process. You have to go through a lot of iterations to get it right.
Yes.
And so. That was something that we learned in that first year of co-teaching too. Like, it has to be everything. Like what normally would be a solo decision had to be talked through and thought about. And so, it was all about compromise and finding something that we both liked. So, I became a little bit of a Canva graphic design.
Oh, good.
Person. So
that's great. That's awesome.
I think we knew that we wanted the globe, with the connect your students to the world. We knew it was going to start with a globe. And that's kind of where we started. And then, there was a lot of iterations, but we're both thrilled with how it came out.
Well, I know both of you, and it is awesome. I know both of you have podcasts in your classrooms, which is incredible. If there's three messages I receive a lot of each week is, one, can I be on your podcast? Two, can you help me start a podcast? And three, how do I publish a book? And you've nailed them. You've nailed all three, guys. Good job. But I want to help everybody. I really do. But first, I think like doing great things in your classroom is awesome. And you are. And like, I love the podcast because I know this is your connection. This is how you are connecting, at least one of the ways that you're connecting kids to the world, which is part of your design of the book. That's what you're recommending to teachers. So I have been a guest on Zach's podcast in his classroom. I jumped in. I think I talked about podcasting with your students. Is that right, Zach?
Yeah. So Kelly, our system in this book is part one, have students learn from experts. Part two, have them become the experts. Part three, have them teach like experts. So one of the biggest projects I took on was starting a podcast. And I have to give you credit in this process because the way I will get ideas, I'll think them over. It's a paralysis by analysis syndrome, and then nothing happens. So when I got this idea, was actually in the summer, it was a workshop, and then I scrapped the idea, thought about something else. And then during curriculum night, it was about 15 minutes before the parents walked in, and I just added a new slide to my presentation, and I wrote Classroom Podcast. And I
love it.
I don't really know how to do this. Don't tell the students yet, but I want you to be aware this is a big project I want to take on this year. Kind of tap into that YouTuber motivation that the kids tend to have. So I didn't truly know how to do it. And I'm not kidding you in this serendipity, but I walked out of curriculum night and got in my car, and I opened my podcast app, and I've been subscribed to the Wired Educator podcast for years, but you can
a solo
episode that day called How to Start a Podcast How to Start a Podcast. And I listened to it. I was too tired that night. I listened to it on the way to school that next morning and had my system right then and there. You wrote the roadmap and released it the day I said it. But then
I did not know that. I really did not know that, Zach.
Yeah,
that's news to me.
The exact, within an hour of you releasing it, I said it, and then I found it. It was the most perfect stars aligning situation. But then getting started, I didn't want to be the one standing in front of my students saying, here's how to start a podcast, because I have never started a podcast. So I reached out to you, recruited you, and you were able to Skype in. And even now when I talk about podcasting with my students, having done it a couple of years, I go back to your advice and share how you, the Wired Educator podcast and your Future Focus podcast, are the true expert in this, and we all learn from you, and it helped us tremendously that first year getting it started. So that story is in the book because it is learning from experts.
You just made my day. Aligned. Thank you so much. Did you talk Grayson into starting a podcast, or did you already have that kind of an idea as well?
So we had been at actually different workshops over the summer. I had gone to one at Michigan State, which was about design thinking, and they were kind of using like the Stanford model. But I had the idea, but Zach is the one who paved the way, and like, you know, everything that he was learning along the way, I was like, hey, how did you do this? And you know, even once he wrote a grant to get, you know, a quality microphone. And so like a lot of the stuff that he did, we emulated, and our podcasts do have different focuses. But yeah, the Fourth Grade Innovators podcast definitely was the inspiration for the Fifth Grade Futurists podcast. That was what we created out of that.
Well, that's great, Zach and Grayson. I'm so glad to hear that, and I love your system. Like, I really mean that. Like, I really love your system. I think it works, and I'm not an expert. I was an expert for your students that day. Thank you. But like, you're experts now, and the experts are the people who just like, I'm going to try this, you know, like I'm going to quit writing about it in my journal, and I'm just going to like Google how to do whatever and then like start. And you did it. And most importantly, the start is so important, but the finish, you finished, and that makes all the difference. Now, my first book was very much like that. Along Came a Leader. And I really wrote it because I was an English teacher to seventh grade students, and I'm talking about, it's important to write, and you know, it's important to, you know, all like show them. If you're a science teacher, show them the science in life, and et cetera. So thank you both for doing that. So, not to give the book away for free, because we all need this copy, and not just one for ourselves, but one to give to our administrators, and one to give to a colleague, and one to keep at home. But walk us through some of the other parts in the book. I love that students learn from experts outside of the classroom. That is great. Skyping and talking to people in other parts of the world should not be like wild and crazy. It should be regular, right, guys?
Yeah. And especially now, over the past year, everyone is used to being on Zoom. So scheduling a Zoom meeting, which used to take like FaceTiming someone before to walk them through how to set up a Zoom meeting and call them. Everyone knows how to do that now. So it's become even more easy to do and easy to connect with people over the last year, I'd say.
The greatest year of PD ever, COVID, right? Yes. Okay. Grayson, you were going to say something. Go ahead, sir.
Well, a lot of the providers, a lot of those expert content providers out there also had to pivot this year. And so, you know, places that may not have been offering distance learning opportunities now have those readily available. They've got whole catalogs full.
Right.
There are companies that we outline in the book that make it really easy to, you know, connect with scientists, or connect with zoologists, or connect with engineers, or connect with, you know, whatever you're studying in the classroom. And that is kind of the beauty of the system. It's totally applicable to whatever the content area is that you're teaching. And even though we're both elementary teachers, it can definitely be replicated in any grade level.
Great. Awesome. Can you guys take me into some of the other parts of the book? Like students learn from experts outside the classroom. What's next?
Yeah, then we have the students become the experts. So kind of the event to get them going, you know, it's in project-based learning. So it starts with a driving question. They learn a little bit from an expert, and then it's time for the students to become the expert. So that's where we go into taking students through a project-based learning cycle where they are practicing and doing the actual work to learn it, instead of just simply reading out a textbook, taking a multiple choice test, and moving on to the next textbook passage and the next test. So, and the second part is taking them through that project-based learning cycle, and really you become more of a coach and a connector to students, and leading them to resources. And of course, there is still part of that where it's mini lessons and stories and a little bit of lecture in there. There's a misconception that project-based learning is just like setting kids free to find out on their own. Mm-hmm. But really it's, you know, guiding them and coaching them along the process for part 2.
Fantastic. Grayson, what do you have to add there, or another avenue to look at?
So I'll just add on to project-based learning. A lot of, when we first started talking about this, the biggest question that we got is, well, isn't that just doing projects? And there's a big difference between, going through an entire textbook chapter and then doing a project at the end versus actually doing the learning through the project. Mm-hmm. When you tell kids, and this kind of connects to part 3 too, though. When you tell kids, at the end of this cycle, we're going to be teaching our kindergarten buddies, or we're going to be setting up a museum exhibit in our gymnasium, and your parents are going to be invited. Or when you say, we're going to be going back to that expert that we learned from last week, and we're going to be showing them now your designs that you've come up with, it makes it real. Kids know that it's going to be, of value to somebody in the world. It's going to add, they're going to use their learning to improve the lives of others. So taking them through the project-based learning cycle, it's really the vehicle by which they learn the material. It's not just something to do at the end. It's not an arts and crafts project. And so we kind of talk about the differences there. And no matter what our students' futures look like, it's the working through the project, working in teams that are going to give them the skills to be able to collaborate and communicate effectively and use creativity and critical think. Those types of skills are going to last them well beyond the time that they leave your classroom, much more than an A+ or a B- on a quiz that you give. So that's the goal.
Absolutely, Grayson. That's what the kids are going to remember, and that's really where they build that conceptual knowledge of how to do things. And that's at DOK4, that's at synthesization, that's quad D, that's all the things we want. We still got to have a quiz now and then. I look at what's going on here. I love it. I mean, I love I don't want to say simplicity in a negative way. I love the simplicity of it as it's doable. But help me with each part of these. So let's go to the first one. Yes, we've all been, Skyping and Zooming and Google Meeting people. I think people overthink things. So I think people will take these very simple ideas and they're going to overthink it. Did you make a list? These are the people we want to reach out to, or does it just kind of organically grow by what you're studying?
I think it's a little bit of both, but I think as we have taught our grade levels a couple of years, you kind of figure out where those rabbit holes in your curriculum you can dive down is. So each year we have a weather project that we know is going to happen. And our teaching partner, Amanda Oliver, she was able to reach out to a meteorologist a few years ago and ask, do you want to Skype in with our class? And he's like, well, I'd rather can I come into the school and do it? So we had a meteorologist come in and
awesome.
Who better to teach about weather than that? And he taught us how the green screen worked. He took our class pictures and put it on the news the next morning. So doing things like that. And then we bought green screens, and the weather project was them standing in front of a green screen. If they were the tornado group, they were, set up the green screen so it looked like they were live reporting from a tornado, which is way better than making a poster or taking a quiz on the causes of a tornado.
Or actually doing it in real life, because that'd be really, really dangerous.
So what we break down in the book is that you don't have to reach out to the number one world-renowned expert. An expert is anyone who is living the work and knows more than you do and can relate to the kids. So to them, when you bring in these experts, they all look at them as if they're famous. Every time they get excited to talk to them and somebody who's actually doing the work. So it raises that level of engagement, but it takes a lot of asking. And there's been a lot of times we've gotten no answer, or everyone is busy. We completely understand that. We're never trying to pressure people. But the other thing is not to look at it like you're like a salesman trying to get something. Our product is helping kids, and a lot of people in the world want to do that. It's good PR for businesses if they do that. So it's not as hard as you think, and never take, if someone's busy or can't do it personally. It's just a numbers game of asking, and then as you do it, you kind of build up a contact list of people who can help you out.
Absolutely. I love it. Grayson, anything to add? And Grayson, I'm going to give you my next question, if not.
Well, I was going to say the other time it can be organic and spontaneous is when you get a new batch of students. Every year you have a new group of kids coming in, and in many ways, your school community is the greatest source of expertise that you can find. So getting to know your students' families and, finding out, oh, you've got an uncle who works at Tesla. You've got an aunt that at the Weather Channel in Georgia, and finding out about that, because families of the students love to help too, and families, I feel like in most cases they want to be connected to the school. So sometimes you can be pleasantly surprised about who you can get your students learning from.
Sure, and you're doing two things at once. You're building those super important connections with families, and that's helps the kid learn for the rest of the year, because they're like, wow, you care, you know about my uncle, and that's really great. Grayson and Zach, you can come in and support if needed. Project-based learning. So like a few episodes back on the Wired Educator podcast, I interviewed Aaron Murphy and Ross Cooper about their book, Project-Based Learning. Second time I've had them on the show. And I think project-based learning is super important. I also think it's something we overthink. I think teachers don't go there because I tried it. It didn't work. Well, of course, it's going to be sloppy the first time. I tried it. It's too hard. It was too messy. It was too loud. It was too chaotic. Can you, Grayson and Zach, can you tell me, can you simplify it? Can you make project-based learning not seem like we're building a pyramid, for 300 years? Grayson?
Right. Well, yeah, first of all, when we say project-based learning, you're right. People do get overwhelmed. They think, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can commit 2 months to this. But the thing is that we mentioned in the book is that they can be short-term projects or long-term projects. The important thing is that you have that authenticity. There are a couple of essential elements, and you want to make sure that it's an authentic project, something that the students see, if it's a real world problem, or if it's something that you're going to be sharing with the community, that there's a reason for it. And then the other thing about it is that not all projects need to look the same. So, you might have one group of students who are musically inclined, and so they're using their musical, their GarageBand on the iPad to create, I'm going to the Pure Michigan campaign idea that we talk about in the book.
Yeah.
Pure Michigan, hopefully, your audience will know, Michigan is beautiful in both winter and summer, and there's these commercials that our state puts out, to increase tourism. And one of our favorite projects, since Zach teaches about Michigan history in fourth grade, he was getting his students to look at different regions of Michigan, think about what do they have to offer, and then kind of make their own commercials for that. And Zach, do you want to talk about how you connected them with somebody from the actual campaign?
Yeah, so in that project specifically, going back to part one and that learning from experts, I just started emailing a bunch of people on the Pure Michigan website and finding people. And I emailed about 5 people with no response. And then I got one who answered, and he was able to Skype in with us and teach us that those 30 seconds commercials take 3 to 6 months to make, talk about the budget of them and the return on investment that they make and all of these things that would never be found in a textbook. Or that I would be able to teach.
Sure.
So I think one other thing to mention with project-based learning is, and where it really can scare people, is that, we go through our Twitter feeds or our Instagram where we're seeing teachers and everything looks perfect. But it's really important to note that those are highlight reels, and not all projects are going to be perfect. And we've even had some final products that don't turn out perfect. But the real question is, did the kid learn more from going through that process, even if the end goal isn't perfect, than if they took a multiple choice test, in my mind?
Right. And everything on social media is a highlight reel. So that's a great,
exactly.
That's a great point. Awesome. So students learn from experts, and then students become experts through project-based learning. Now, the last piece, students teach others as experts. What does that look like? How do students teach others as experts? Because I'm kind of drawing a blank here. What does that look like?
This is definitely our favorite part of the process, and it can look in many different ways. We start with an audience that is near to you. So that could be when students are doing their presentations, their project presentations, inviting your principal in. It could be inviting the superintendent or people from central office who love an excuse to leave their office and come into the classrooms. It could be hosting a showcase at the school where you set up in the gymnasium. This is all right now with COVID. None of these are really possible, but set up in the gymnasium and have the whole school come walk around station to station. And it's giving people that audience. It's inviting a buddy class in, younger grade or the same grade level who've been learning about the same things. So those are all the examples of like the simple near ones you can start with. And Grayson, you want to talk about some of the bigger picture ideas?
Yeah. So, adding on this audience component really makes it real. Like everybody's talking about student voice, how student voice is very important. But if the students are just, creating something and there's not somebody there to hear it, the results aren't going to be as impactful. So that's what we figured out, is that when students not only are using their voice to share their learning, but then also have people who are interested in learning from them, that creates the mind-blowing experiences. So some of those that can happen far away from the school, would be the podcast that Zach and I have created. And it's been amazing. We both use Anchor.fm as our kind of like broadcasting tool, I guess. It sends it to all of the different, podcast platforms. And one of the cool things about it is that it gives you analytical information about who's listening. And so when we've got students in our school who still have family, living in India or living in Europe or living in South America, and when we can start to see those, pings showing up on the maps, showing that, hey, you put together this podcast episode, you wrote the script, you did the research, and now people are listening to it, around the world. That audience piece really is a game changer. Right. When students and teachers know that their audience is bigger than the people in the classroom, the conversation changes and it gets real. Right. The connections, just bring a different perspective. And that's been a game changer. There's a favorite quote that we have from Rushton Hurley. And I don't know if you've had him as a guest on your show, but you should.
I have not.
We've seen him at some regional conferences. And he says this, if students are sharing their work with the world, they want it to be good. But if they're just sharing it with you, they want it to be good enough. So if the teacher is the only one who's going to see their story, that, right now my fifth graders are writing fantasy narratives. If I'm the only one who's going to read it, they're probably not going to put that much effort into it. But if they know that we're going to send it to Avi and J.K. Rowling on Twitter, and we're gonna put it out there, they want it to be good. And Zach's got a perfect term for this when the kids really want to put their best effort forward.
What is it? I've been calling this selective perfectionism, where students who are not normally perfectionists and write sloppy or write quick, when they know that their work is going out, they want it to be high quality, so that when people are listening or people are reading it on a blog on the internet, it raises that level, so they want to make their work better. And that's that internal motivation that they have, which of course in turn makes their learning deeper.
I love it. The book is The Expert Effect, a 3-part system to break down the walls of your classroom and connect your students to the world, by Grayson McKinney and Zach Rondo, and it is by EduMatch Publishing. Congratulations, gentlemen. It's a hit. I love it. I know the Wired Educator listeners right now are leaning in. You've got their attention. They're like, I want to do that. I want this to be part of my classroom. Well, hit down to the show notes, hit the link, and grab a copy of the book and support Grayson and support Zach and learn and share it out. This is a great book. I'm so excited. Now, both of you, what's your goal? Like, what's the big goal here? What are we chasing with this book?
Well, we're not chasing any like bestseller rankings or anything like that. The goal is to make an impact. So the goal is to get teachers to read it and for it to be practical enough for them to change their thinking and change what they do in a small way or a big way that impacts their students.
Awesome. Grayson?
Yeah, that is the question. Like, how do you take, pockets of, where things are going really well and bring it to scale? And, even though we're not legislators, we felt like, writing this book would be one way to get our message to the world and hopefully improve the quality of education for kids everywhere. We don't have your daughters in our classroom, but how can we make sure that, your kids are getting that same, impactful, meaningful, authentic learning experience where it's going to keep them engaged. It's going to keep them excited about learning, into adulthood. So that is a big goal for me.
Yeah.
And, the other thing that I think just in general that educators need to be aware of is that we're, for a lot of people, we've been doing things in the same way since, the industrial age. School sometimes in some places still looks the same, rows of desks and columns and whatnot, janitorial, what are they called? Custodial roles. But we need to be ready to move to the next age. We're past the information age. We're moving into the imagination age. And in this next chapter of education, it's going to be about creativity and entrepreneurship. Those are going to be the most valuable assets. The things that can't be easily automated and turned over to artificial intelligence. So we're trying to make those experiences for kids in our own classrooms, and this book is a little window into that for our friends around the world.
Awesome. Thank you both. I am excited, and I know my listeners are as well. It's a great book. I love every piece about it, and I can't wait to grab my copy and dig through it and share it out with the world through all my social media, and I hope everybody shares this episode. Gentlemen, I like to end the Wired Educator podcast with a type of speed round of questions. I hope you're up for it. And Zach, since you're a listener, you may have worked on yours a little bit, so I may throw you a curveball. First, I want to give you an opportunity to Tell everybody one last message that you think is important, and share out how they can find the book and how they connect with you and follow your journey.
Yeah, so we just kind of think we're at this, even before the pandemic, we thought we were at this tipping point in education where things can change, and this pandemic has spurred that. And something we've been saying is we can't go back to normal. Like, we have to move forward through this and elevate education. So that's kind of our big push and big thoughts around it.
Awesome. And how can the listeners follow you, Zach? And
Oh yeah, I'm on Twitter at Mr. Rondo, but it's RONDOT, silent T, French Canadian. Instagram at Zach Rondo, and I have a blog, zachrondo.com.
Excellent. Grayson, what's your message to everybody, and how can they follow along on your journey?
We just need to, we need to make school an exciting place to be. We say that we want kids to want to come to school, not have to come to school. So every day, you should be looking for opportunities to make kids fall in love with learning. I'm also on Twitter. You can follow me at gmckinney2. And we have set up an Instagram account for our book called Expert Effect EDU. And the blog that we originally started 8 years ago now, I guess, is innovation4education.wordpress.com.
Wow. Well, that is awesome. Congratulations one more time to both of you. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done. All right. Well, I'd like to jump into my speed round of questions, and I'm going to kind of flip it back and forth. We're going to start with Grayson. Grayson, my go-to question of every guest on the Wired Educator podcast is, what's the most, or one of the most influential books you've ever read? Now, Zach is scrambling over to his bookshelf trying to find a book. Grayson's got the spotlight on him in the hot seat. Go ahead, Grayson.
Okay. I would have to say the work of Ron Richart has been the most impactful for me, and his most recent book is The Power of Making Thinking Visible. That is, it talks about visible thinking routines, how to slow down and go deep with kids to really develop an understanding, not just try to cover a bunch of bases. And I think that, that is the type of learning that sticks long after kids have left your classroom. So I'll say The Power of Making Thinking Visible by Ron Richart.
Thank you. Zach, what's one of the most influential books in your life?
The first one that comes to mind for me is The Energy Bus by John Gordon. And that book I've probably read it 5 to 6 times. Every time I read it, it just gives me a new outlook on that. Looking through things with positivity. And I think it's especially impactful for teachers because, as we all know, teaching is not an easy job. And it's easy to get down about some things. But it every time I read it, kind of recenters me and reshifts me having a positive outlook and enjoying the ride of life and enjoying the ride of school.
I don't think that's on your bookshelf right now. I think you gave it to me and I never returned it.
You two are awesome. Grayson, what is something that, and you can go any direction you'd like with this one, what's something you listen to, whether it be a podcast, an audiobook, music, something that you think the listeners would benefit from knowing?
Oh my gosh. I'll give two. So over the last year, our family has been learning as much as we can about social justice, and we have made a really strong connection with Amber Coleman Mortley and her three daughters, who started a podcast called Let's K-12 Better. And every week they talk about it's kind of an intersection between family life, and I've got three kids, and education, because all of our kids are in the school systems, and social justice and what we can do to be allies. So we've been listening to that. That's my Sunday afternoon grocery shopping listening. And but then on the music side, I will give a shout out to one of my students, see if he listens all the way to the end of this, and thank him for introducing me. I've been playing music every morning as we get our Zoomies on to our virtual class meetings. And one morning I played a theme song from a anime show on Netflix, and he's like, "Okay, Mr. McKinney, this is pretty good, but you have to listen to this." And it's a show called Black Clover. So there's this whole playlist on Spotify of all the Black Clover openings, and it's all music that's either in Korean or Japanese, and it's like the music that I grew up listening to, which is like the pop punk, but it's in Japanese. So that's fun.
Way cool. Love it. Awesome. Zach, how about you? Something you listen to?
Yeah, I listen to always been a lot of podcasts, and I love like the School of Greatness with Lewis Howes or the Ed Milet show that are kind of like inspirational mindset type shows that aren't necessarily related to teaching. But another thing I listen to a lot, and this is like on my way home from school, we all hit that point where we can't take any more information, and I love listening to some hockey podcasts and some sports type podcasts to kind of like let my brain decompress a little bit.
I love it. Very good. What is something, Grayson, that you found yourself practicing? And you can go any direction with this. It could be a new habit. It could be educational. Go ahead.
So the time, starting last March, I felt like I was in the healthiest place I had been in for my personal health for a while, because I actually had time to exercise, and I started running and getting outside more. And so it's been a year since then. I kind of stopped running, admission, but my son just recently joined a mountain biking team for our area. So I've been mountain biking with him, and that has been a fun new hobby, and I definitely need to practice.
Awesome. That is cool. You are a family guy. I respect that. Zach?
I'm going to go a little different direction with this, something I haven't been practicing, but I'm going to practice in an hour for the first time. I'm going to a yoga class. So if I say it out here, it'll hold me accountable to keep going every Wednesday.
There you go. Well, listen, I want you guys to lean in a little bit, and I'm just love having you on. It is so fun. You are two awesome educators, and I love your book. And I love this message, and I hope you sell 1 million copies. And Zach, you can send me the royalty check since you mentioned me in the book. Zach, I have to ask you. I don't want to put you on the spot, and I'm afraid I am. But Zach, I had the privilege. I offered some coaching or mentoring through kind of a contest, and you were the winner. And I got to work with you, and it was so much fun because you have so much energy, and you do think big. You want to do everything now. and the cool thing is you are. And I'm just curious, on the spot, but was working with me helpful? Did this working with me in any way impact your decision to go with a book, or you knew you were going to do that anyways?
No, 100%. 100%. You helped influence me in so many ways. And I think the biggest thing I took away from that and working with you is I would go from, like, I've always thought big, but like the taking action step. is where I do like I said earlier, kind of the paralysis by analysis. And you kind of held me accountable to that and taking steps towards launching a blog and helping me along the way, but pushing me towards different things. And without that, I don't know that I would have had the confidence to start writing by myself on that blog and then getting to this. So it helped 100%. And I'm so thankful for that. It was a few years ago, but it still has stuck with me, and our connection has been very meaningful and impactful for me.
Gosh, I feel like I just threw myself a shameless plug right there, but thank you, Zach. Now, Grayson, you and I have not met. Go ahead.
I'll take it away from you. You broke up the band, Kelly. You broke up. You're the Yoko Ono. We were, blogging, and then Zach had his own thing.
Oh no,
no. It has been inspirational. He sends out positivity calendars. He's been doing an awesome job. So we've all seen the effects. So I'm just completely joking, but
that's awesome. Now, Grayson, you and I haven't met, but I through this, I don't know, there's always kind of a bond when I interview somebody. It's a great conversation, and I feel like we have kindred hearts, and that's really cool. So my question to you, kind of along the same line, where do you see you and Zach going with the book? Do you see yourself speaking on the book at some conferences, maybe take it on the road, doing some Zooms with it, working on another project? What do you think?
So we definitely loved the presentation circuit, and we were going to regional universities and regional technology integration conferences for educators, and that kind of ended last year. In fact, I was about to go to McCall, which is I guess for me, it's Michigan's biggest educational technology conference. And it was like on the eve of McCall, and I was like, oh, COVID? Okay, I have no idea what this is. And I got a text from our principal and said, don't go. This is serious. I was like, okay. Well,
that was right at the moment. Yeah.
And so they still ran it. I was not there. But yes, we are dying to get back into that process. The book is one way to bring our message to people, but I feel like we do have a great synergy when we're presenting. And yeah, we would love to work with districts. We would love to do a book study with schools. Anything that we can do to help promote this message of making school exciting and meaningful for kids. And I've already thrown the idea out there. We don't really have anything firm yet, but we'd love to do a children's companion book for this, like a picture book, because it's one thing to tell, the teachers all about how to do this and, how to get kids excited about learning. But we think it's the kids who need to, have that message and feel empowered in their learning and realize that they don't have to wait to be adults in order to make an impact on the world. There's countless examples of kids becoming experts and changing the world. So anything we can do to move the needle on that would be good. And a children's picture book might be the way to go.
Well, that is an excellent idea. I love that you are still going. It is a gorgeous day outside in Ohio, and I'm sure it's a gorgeous day outside in Michigan. I thank you both so much for your time and for all that you shared on the Wired Educator podcast. You're awesome. Listeners, hit the links. The Expert Effect. You need this book for your summer and for next year. Grayson, Zach, thanks for being on the Wired Educator podcast.
Thank you so much, Kelly.
Zach and Grayson are two amazing educators, and this is a fantastic book, The Expert Effect. I'm so proud that I had this opportunity to interview both of them and talk about their book, and I'm going to give you a chance to win a copy of the book. You can order a copy in the show notes. There's a link down below. Just hit that, and you can order a copy for yourself and for a friend. But if you'd like a chance to win the book, it's easy. Just use the hashtag WiredEducator or Wired2Teach, and you can win a copy of the book. Here's what I'd like you to say, that you love listening to the Wired Educator podcast, that you're excited to read The Expert Effect by Zach and Grayson, but you can say whatever you want. Just use the hashtag WiredEducator and Wired2Teach, and I'll go through over the next 7 days some of the tweets. I'm going to find one that gets my attention. I'm going to give away a book. The second way you can win a copy of The Expert Effect is I want you to try to guess who my next guest is going to be on the Wired Educator podcast to celebrate the 200th episode of the Wired Educator podcast. Who do you think that I'm going to interview? I'm going to surprise you. but I want to hear your guesses. So use the hashtag WiredEducator and say, I think Kelly is going to interview and name somebody, and we'll see if you're right. If you are right, I'll give out a second copy of the book myself, The Expert Effect. So that'll be some fun. Hey, listen, I want to thank you for listening to the Wired Educator podcast. Each week you tune in, you subscribe, you leave comments, you leave reviews about the podcast, and that's awesome. This has been an incredible year, not an easy one at all, and you did it. And I just want to thank you for that. Celebrating the big 200th episode next week, I'm going to have a lot of surprises going out. I'm going to give copies of my book, Unthink Before Bed, copies of my book, Along Came a Leader, copy of The Expert Effect. It's going to be full of surprises. Let's really celebrate this 200th episode of the Wired Educator podcast. You are awesome. Thank you for being a listener of the Wired Educator podcast. Have a great week. Wait a minute. I didn't do my sign off correctly, and it just wouldn't seem right to end the episode without my signature sign off. Thank you for listening to the Wired Educator podcast. Please check the show notes for links to everything mentioned in the interview and the pre-roll. If you would like your book, your product, your service, your conference, or website mentioned or highlighted in the pre-roll, please email me at kelly@kellycroy.com. Thank you for taking time from your busy week to listen to the show, level up as an educator, and make a difference in the lives of students. You're awesome. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the Wired Educator podcast at www.wirededucator.com.